Okay, so we're going to start off with just a quick review from the last video, last class. So can someone tell me, for this particular question, I am trying to get this into y is equal to mx plus b form. That is our point slope form. Mr. Rubino, do you actually have a key to math? What? No, okay, never mind. Now, is this equation in standard form? Is this equation in standard form? No one knows? Oh, it's not. Can someone tell me why it's not in standard form? What would it have to be, what would have to change in order for this to be in standard form? Someone has to know. Be in standard form. Jennifer, you want to take a guess? Okay. Oh, yes. Yes, one side has to equal 0, and that would be the side where x is positive. So if, oops, wrong number, and go back to my pen. So if it looked like this, where everything was over to the side that x is positive, so anyone who wasn't at the last seminar, please review the video I posted that talked all about what we call equations in standard form. Now, the purpose of this question is to move from standard form into point slope form. So last time, oh, no, Patil, this is grade 9. It's okay. Seminar. Okay, sorry. Point slope form tells us what your y-intercept and what your slope is. However, standard form does not tell us any of that information. That's why we're trying to switch to point slope form. I would like to see everyone taking notes, please. So you should have paper and pencil on your desk, or I'm going to have to ask a difference. So you can get some paper or share paper. If you want to be here at the seminar, I expect that you're taking notes, everyone. Okay? And I'm really serious about that, kids. Paper. If you need to ask for paper, you can go over there and ask for some extra paper. Okay, so what we're trying to do is we're going to isolate the y. Okay, we're isolating. We want it to be into y is equal to mx plus b form. So I'm going to keep the negative 4y on the left-hand side. And I want to stress this because I marked a couple of tests where there was a problem with this particular concept. So when the 11x moves over to the other side, what happens to the sign in front of the 11x? Yes. So what, define opposite? Yes, it turns into a negative 11x. Perfect. Negative 4y stays on the left-hand side. The positive 32 is already on the right-hand side, so I don't have to move it. That is why the 32 remains positive. Now, this is going to be a tricky situation because we have terms that are going to ensure that our final equation has a bunch of fractions in it. So there is a negative 4 that's attached to the y. So I really don't, I want to encourage you not to just, when I say divide both sides by negative 4, I don't want you to write it like this, because then you're going to get stuck. So instead, I want to encourage you to divide every single term by negative 4. So what that looks like is the negative 11x gets divided by negative 4, 32 gets divided by negative 4. So if I try to isolate, negative 4 times negative 4 gives me positive y by itself. Negative 11 divided by negative 11x divided by negative 4. What is that going to simplify to? Anyone know? How can I simplify that? Would I leave it like that on a test? What can I do? I'm worried. Any ideas? What is a negative and a negative simplify to? How can I simplify that? Yes, you know. Positive. Yes, we changed this to positive 11 over 4x. And have confidence with your answer, kids. You know this stuff. We've been working on integers since unit 1. How about positive 32 divided by negative 4? How can I simplify that? I have 2 hands I've seen before. Yes, Caitlin? Negative. It is definitely a negative. What is the number, the constant number? Yeah. -8. Excellent. So that's how I'm going to leave my final answer. Now, that is an equation in what I need everyone to write. The equation is now in point slope form. Oh, sorry, not point slope form. I'm getting ahead of myself. Into slope intercept form. Because from this equation, I can now figure out what the slope of my graph is going to be, as well as my b value, which is my y-intercept. So can anyone help me with this? What is my slope and what is my y-intercept? Yes. -8, right? So that means when x is equal to 0, y is equal to -8. That is my y-intercept. What about my slope? What is my slope? Yes, Jennifer. 11 over 4. That is my slope. So when you have equations that are in standard form or any other form, the only way to figure out the slope and the y-intercept in a problem like this is to turn it into slope intercept form. Okay, so in order to move on in the unit and come up with equations of the line, slope-intercept form, what you're going to read in your unit guides, and remember unit 10 and 11 are together to prepare for the midterm. Slope-intercept form is of the form y is equal to mx plus b. Now, I can be given much less information and be expected to create an equation in slope-intercept form. But before I can truly teach you how to do that, we do have to review quickly about parallel perpendicular lines, as well as, to learn a little bit more about the slope-intercept form. So I am going to be zooming through the next couple of slides before I slow down. But don't worry if you miss anything, because I will be posting a video of today's seminar. Okay, so I have some hallway math questions that I'm skipping through because we are going to do some hallway math as a seminar option to prepare for the test. The next section is about graphing equations using x and y intercepts. So I just quickly want to review this. You don't have to write this down, but please make notes on this in the future. Oops. So I'm going to bring this down. I want to grab my highlighter tool. So when I'm solving for the x-intercept, please make a note that you're looking at where the graph intersects the horizontal axis, right? That is the x-axis. That is where the x-intercept is. You always have a 0 when your graph is crossing the x-axis. Actually, this is a good slide. So maybe if you can just define your x and y intercepts and draw a brief sketch of this particular graph, and I'll give you time to do that. In green, if you have different colors, please use the different colors in your notes. The y-intercept is the vertical axis. So if I have this vertical axis, this is where the graph crosses the vertical y-axis. And whenever we have a y-intercept, our x has to be 0. So if you have the ability to highlight or write the 0 in a different color, that's something you have to memorize for your test or should be included in your study notes for the test. Okay, we are good with this slide, I am hoping. For questions, and I'll include this in the notes, when a line is written in standard form, it is easy to graph the line using x and y intercepts because at the x-intercept, we let y equal 0. At the y-intercept, we let x is equal to 0. You don't have to copy all of this in your notes, but maybe just some instructions on how to substitute, what to substitute in your particular equations. And we're going to practice doing that right now, okay? So we're going to take this step by step. And we will start with the line. Let me zoom in on this a little bit. So we're starting at the line 2x minus 3y minus 6 is equal to 0. If everyone can, copy that equation into your notes. For the first part, to find the x-intercept, we're going to set y equals 0 and solve. So this is our equation. Wherever you see y in the equation, we're going to substitute 0. So instead of 2x minus 3y, you're going to put in 2x minus 3 times 0 minus 6. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. There we go. And that's going to give me 2x minus 6, because the negative 3 times 0 just disappears. I can say 2x is equal to positive 6. And if I divide both sides by 2, that is going to give me my x-intercept. It's really important not to skip any steps when you're writing this down, because every step is going to be worth marks on your test. Just make sure you're writing everything down, please. So if I'm solving for x and x is equal to 3, what that translates to on the graph is the point when x is equal to 3, y is equal to 0. And that's an actual point that you can substitute, you can actually graph. So you're doing this algebraically, but you're also going to graph your solutions. Okay, let's do the opposite. So same equation, but this time I'm going to find the y-intercept.
Sorry for the interruption. Could Salvador Miranda please come down to the main office? Salvador Miranda.
Okay, so to find the y-intercept, we have to set x is equal to 0 and solve. I want you to take a second, write that instruction down, but I want you to actually try it now. Set y equals 0, x equal to 0. So your very first step should be like this. And let's see if you can get I want you to compare your steps to my steps. Everyone in this room should have covered your algebra strand. So you should know how to isolate and solve for y. And I could do tons of examples, but this is going to be the same concept over and over again. To solve for the x-intercept, we let y equal 0. To solve for the y-intercept, we let x equal 0. Nothing about that changes. That's why I want to move to another topic in the guide, and I'm just going through this example. So if 2 times 0 is 0, that kind of disappears. Your next line should be negative 3y minus 6. I'm just going to lock this door so that we don't get Did anyone solve for y? Solve for what the y-intercept is? Caleb, what did you get? 2, positive 2? Okay, so let's see if Caleb is correct. Negative 3y is equal to positive 6. When we divide both sides by negative 3, so 2 is correct. However, we do have to divide by negative 3. So the y is going to be equal to negative 2, which means my y-intercept is going to be when x is equal to 0, y is equal to negative 2. So I know there's a few people in here that are way beyond this concept, so I'm going to move into some harder questions in a little bit. The actual notes that I am going to post, so if I zoom out, they're going to have lots of examples with different equations so that you can practice solving for the x-intercept and the y-intercept. There also has some equations in standard form. So when I substitute a 0 into y, or I substitute 0 into x, it shows you more complex questions about how x-intercept and y-intercept can be used. But I kind of want to skip over this a little bit today. Let's see. Okay, let's move into here. So I have these 2 points, the x-intercept and the y-intercept. X is equal to 6, 0, actually negative 6 and 0. Y is equal to 0 and positive 5. If they were to tell you part 2 of this, if you were, oh, sorry, how did I make a mistake here? This looks like a mistake. Positive 30 moves over to the other side, becomes negative 30. I divide both sides, I get negative 6. Okay, I want you to try on your own to use this point, negative 6, 0, and this point, the y-intercept, 0, 5. And I want you to figure out the equation of the slope of the line. Sorry, not the equation, but the slope of the line using the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So can you work with the person next to you and try to figure out the slope of the line? And I'm going to walk you through it in a second. So when you are solving, remember to label, just like I did. You'll notice that I labeled my first point x1, y1, my second point x2, y2. Okay, was anyone able to get an answer for the slope of the line? Jennifer, did you have your hand up? What was your answer? 5 over 0. Okay, let's check. Did anyone have another answer? Yeah. 5 over 6. Okay, let's see what is correct. So if I'm using my slope formula, y2, my y2 is positive 5. My y1 is 0. And then I have my x2 is 0. My x1, so I have to remember it's 0 minus negative 6. 0 minus negative 6. So when I do that, 5 minus 0 over 0 plus 6, because a negative times a negative turns into a positive. So my final answer for slope is going to be positive 5 over 6. Does that make sense to everyone? So when you're dealing with negative numbers, you have to be super careful because you have the formula which says subtract, but the two double negatives do turn into a positive. That's something to watch out for when you're doing questions like this. Now, in order to write the equation of the line, all we need is, we figured out the slope is equal to 5 over 6. I already solved for my y-intercept. So my equation of the line is in the form y is equal to mx plus b, where I just have to substitute my slope and my y-intercept in order to write out the equation of the line. So if I had to give you some steps to solve when you're working with these type of equations, I would give you the following steps. If we can all write the steps into your notes. So steps needed to graph a line using the intercepts. Step 1, we have to solve for the y-intercept by setting x equal to 0. Then we have to solve for the x-intercept by setting y equals 0. We can plot the intercepts and draw a straight line through the points. We can also solve for the slope of the line using my formula for slope, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So these 4 steps are going to encompass a large portion of your midterm test exam, whatever you would like to call it. That's going to be a large portion of it. And on top of what I am covering in the seminar today, in your seminar notes, you will see that I've included other practice questions that you can try yourself before you write the test as practice. So take a few minutes to copy all those steps, everyone. Okay, kids, let's move on. Parallel and perpendicular lines. Does anyone know what a negative reciprocal is? Raise your hand if you know what a negative reciprocal is. Should have learned in elementary school. I see a few hands. Oh, goodness. Okay, so we're going to skip this slide. So basically, I will erase the two lines in yellow. They are parallel lines. So an example of that would be like Kennedy and Birchmount. Kennedy and Birchmount are going in the same direction, but they don't meet, right? They never meet. They're separate. So these two lines, something you should know about parallel lines, they have the same slope and they will never intersect. Now that is very different from these two green lines, this line and this line. Those are intersecting lines and their slope are negative reciprocals of each other. We're going to talk about that in a second. So when we have parallel lines, the slopes are going to be the same. When we have perpendicular lines, so I want you to write the last 2 points. Lines are perpendicular. They are negative reciprocals of each other. So we're talking about perpendicular lines, and I'm just going to move this over. So for example, positive 2/1. If I want the negative reciprocal of positive 2, I'm going to flip the base or flip the slope. So here positive 2 is on the top, here the 2 is on the bottom, here the 1 is in the denominator, now the 1 is in the numerator. My first slope is positive, so the negative reciprocal would be, the second slope would be a negative. Now, if I started off with -1/2, then when I do the negative reciprocal, my reciprocal slope would be positive. So you want to always have the opposite operation. I've written an instruction there. The slopes have been flipped and the sign is changed. That is for negative reciprocal slopes, okay? That's a very important concept. Please write it down. That's something you should include on your study notes as well, so you don't forget it for the test. And now we're going to get to the good stuff. So I think we have until 2:05, so I have some time. Everyone copied that down about negative perpendicular slopes. So the y-intercept does not matter when deciding if two lines are parallel or perpendicular. And this is something else you can include for your study notes. Parallel lines will have equivalent slopes. Perpendicular lines will have slopes that are negative reciprocals, where you have to flip the slope, change the sign. Very clear instructions. So now that you have these instructions, we can move into some sample equations. And feel free sometimes, if it's a lot of information, just get out your phone, take a picture of the screen so that you can record it down later. Oh, sorry. Right. Okay. Not as much time, but still a little bit more. I know that sounds good. Just less work. Sorry, kids are. Oh, Patil, come on in. Okay, so let's do some equations. I'm gonna try to zoom in so that you have the chance to write down the equation. So it says the equation of the line is y is equal to 3x minus 4. Unfortunately, maybe let me zoom out a little bit. What is the slope of a line that is parallel to this line? So very quickly, if in y is equal to mx plus b, so the slope is attached to the x variable. If the slope is 3, then a parallel line is also 3. I'm going to actually zip through the next couple of questions so you don't have to write it down. I just want to make sure that you're understanding it. When the equation of a line is y is equal to 2x plus 1, and you want to find a perpendicular slope. Well, we've already done this. Positive 2/1. That means I need to flip the slope into 1/2 and change from a positive to a negative. That's a negative reciprocal, and that's the way how I determine a slope that is perpendicular. Now, it gets a little bit trickier when we have fractions or negative slopes. In this case, I have my slope is positive 3/5. In the situation where I want a slope of a line that is perpendicular, First, I flip the slope. So instead of 3/5, it becomes 5/3. You can always punch that into your calculator if you need to graph this line to give you a decimal amount. And we start off with a positive. We end off with a negative slope. That would be your negative reciprocal. If our slope started as a negative number, my perpendicular slope would be a positive number. It's always the opposite sign. I know I'm trying to cram a lot of information at you kids today because it's before March break and I won't see you for 2 weeks. So I just want to try to fit in as much information as possible. Okay, we're going to skip this. And let's try this question. Can everyone write this into your notes? Determine the slope of a line that is parallel to the line 2x minus 3y minus 6 is equal to 0. This is a type of question on the midterm that a lot of students make careless mistakes on, because they will look at this and say, oh, miss, it's so easy. My slope is 2 because it says 2x. So that means a parallel slope has to also be 2. But that is not correct. Why can't I just look at that equation in standard form and figure out the slope? Yes? Why can't I figure out, say that the slope is 2 from this equation of the line? Does anyone know? Stress? Yes, very good. So we cannot look at an equation in standard forms and determine the slope of a line. We have to turn it into a slope-intercept form. So that's what I'm saying here. Switch to slope-intercept form. We're starting off in standard form. We're switching to slope-intercept form. So that means because I want my y, I'm going to just move over negative 3y over to the right-hand side. So it becomes positive 3y. I'm trying to get my whole equation into slope-intercept form. And that requires some steps. I have now isolated 3y, but how do I get my equation from 3y to y by itself? What can I do, Jennifer? Yes, we want to divide every term in the equation by 3. So that means y is equal to positive 2/3x minus 2. Okay, but now that's the equation in point slope form. But what is going to be the parallel slope? What is going to be the slope, parallel slope to this line? What? Yes, parallel slope means we have to have the same slope. So the parallel slope is going to be positive 2/3. Can anyone tell me what the perpendicular slope is going to be? Yeah. Very good. The perpendicular slope is going to be negative 3/2. Excellent. So parallel and perpendicular, that comes up quite a bit on the midterm. Okay, there's only 5 more minutes left in the seminar. So I'm going to give you a question to practice. Oh, wait, hold on, maybe not. Yes, I am going to give you a question to practice. I just want to zoom out a little bit. So please, you'll be able to leave after this is done. The question is explain. So sometimes I'm not going to ask you on the midterm to solve, but I'm going to ask you to explain your steps using words. So an example of that is explain how you can determine if the two lines 3x minus 4y minus 12 is equal to 0, and 4x minus 3y minus 24 is equal to 0 are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So these are the steps. Rearrange the question into y is equal to mx plus b form. Then we're going to compare the slope. If they are the same, the lines are parallel. If the slopes are negative reciprocals, of course, the lines are going to be perpendicular. Let me zoom out a little bit. And if they are not the same and they are not negative reciprocals, then it would not be parallel or perpendicular, which is also an option for the midterm. So this would be an example of how to explain what you've learned in words to prove to your teacher that you understand what you are doing for your midterm exam. When we come back from the March break, I'm going to do one more, even though we're already past the Unit 11 target date. Remember, for the grade 9 course, because we have trips, activities, we don't actually have any more tests after the midterm. It is okay if you take a little while after March break and take your time to write the midterm exam, because it is your last test of the course. If you are not at Unit 10 and 11 and you still have your 7 tests, you still have your 6 tests, you still have your 5 tests, you have to get those out of the way as soon as possible, okay? Because you do not want to take any zeros to have the best possible achievement. And you really don't want to go to Mary Ward Summer School and have to waste your summer doing math. I won't be here teaching summer school, so you don't want to be here either. So we organize the course in a certain way that the tests end at Unit 11 and the rest are just unit work and activities and hopefully a trip as well. Also, preparing for the EQAO exam will also give you some credit to finish the course. Just going to end off the Zoom right now.